Hello and welcome to the show. I have as my guest today Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Napier Sr. Welcome and thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk about the upcoming Freedom Banquet for the NAACP, but before we do that, let's do a little history lesson. You'll soon be celebrating 100 years. Let's talk about how the NAACP began, past, present, and future.
Well, yeah, Youngstown next year is going to be, of course, our 100th anniversary. Founded in Youngstown in 1919, after 10 years after the National, which was came online or was founded in 1909. The NAACP, a lot of people don't know the early history, was formed because of racial riots that were going on and the amount of lynchings that were going on as well in the country. A few people in New York got together and decided that they needed to make a biracial organization, if you will, that would stem the tide of lynchings and to bring about change within the society as far as black people are concerned. The organization, after they met at a small apartment, they issued a charge, if you will, to the community. 60 people showed up, and that was the very beginnings of the NAACP. The following year, because the first year was called the National Negro Committee, and the following year when they met, they decided to change the name to the NAACP as we call it currently today. The NAACP has been fighting the fight for years. And through the years, the NAACP has morphed, if you will, changed to fit the times, if you will, with what the organization stands right now in Youngstown. It's about education. But there are a lot of different tendencies, if you will, that the organization represents. As it applies to today, it's police, handling of incidents in a community, and fighting for political refugees who are in the United States as well. So our mission cascades kind of wide.
You know, a lot of people, I think, have questions, and I'm sure you run into that when they say, well, the relative of the mission today, and here we are in 2018, and I think you've broached on that. You're talking about we're still dealing with issues of inequality, but it's targeted more towards specific, broader spectrums than just African Americans.
Correct. Yeah, like I said before, it's a biracial organization. It represents everybody. One of the biggest ways it represents is in the area of litigation. A lot of people don't know about that. That was Thurgood Marshall. That's what he did in the movie Thurgood chronologized his life and how he became a member of the NAACP and how he fought the cases, as we know. But that happens on a local level as well, often out of the view of the public eye.
How often do you do your membership drive? Because it is still a membership in individuals and organizations. So
Correct.
Talk about that a little bit, if you would.
Yeah, the membership drive goes on all year long. It's not just during the Freedom Fund Banquet time of the year, which is always in October. Traditionally, it's always held the second Friday in October. But I tell them, everybody, some of our members, that it goes on all year long, and we all play a role in that when we talk to people as we travel here and there.
And the cost of a membership, and who should be contacted if you want to join?
Well, membership, the basic membership, which I happen to have, is $35. And they ask that you fill out the envelopes. You come to the local office, which is located on Fifth Avenue here in Youngstown. Fill out an application, and that application goes directly to our people. And then we do what we're supposed to do, and then the rest goes off to the National. But if you send the money off to the National, then that money often stays at the National.
Right, that supports the local initiatives.
Exactly.
So, you know, if you're a member, you're supporting financially, but if you're not a member, how can you acquire services? What do you need to do? And give me an example. If Dee Crawford is having a problem, and I come there and I said, look, I need help. I feel that I've been discriminated against or fired without cause. What can the NAACP offer as far as programs are concerned?
Well, the NAACP encourages you to come in, do a face-to-face. Telephones are nice, but face-to-face is the best. And they have to vet you, of course. They sit down and see what your concerns or what possibly the discrimination case may be. And if they see, they'll run it to the legal team. If they see that it's warranted, they'll push it then forward from there. But everything, of course, is vetted. It could be discrimination on the job. It could be incidents that may have happened out of restaurants or anywhere, any work of life or whatever you're doing.
So again, it's not as open as it used to be, let's say, when we're talking about the struggle of inequality, but these issues are still there today.
Oh yeah, like I said earlier, more of this changed. One of the biggest things was stop lynching. The second thing was in the area of social reform, which we still are fighting for today, equal rights. And that's across the board, from employment opportunities to housing opportunities to educational opportunities and so on.
And it's important, I think, for people also to know you don't just serve individuals of African American.
No.
You serve anyone who feels that they have an issue, and that issues include employment, housing, lifestyle, issues of inequality throughout their communities, whatever it is.
Correct.
The NAACP is there as an organization.
Yes, ma'am.
With that mission to serve.
Yes, ma'am.
We also look towards the NAACP, as you said, for the drive every year, but it's all year long, and that's your way of, that's how you financially support it as a not-for-profit, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the lion's share of our monies we get, as mentioned earlier off camera, is done at Freedom from Banquet time. We also have a luncheon that we have during the course of the year too. Last year we hosted that luncheon at Chaffin as well, and it did very well. But the fund, because we're a nonprofit, funds have to come from events like that. Also, a lot of people don't know that 20% of what we get at these fundraisers goes off to the national, and that's how the national is supported through all the local branches nationwide.
Well, I think too that goes to the fact that a lot of the local offices are manned with volunteers, and the national serves as a larger resource for you to pull upon or draw from when you have issues that need to be addressed, because they have the quote-unquote the clout or the power to address it through attorneys, research, data, information, and whatever else may be needed to bring that issue to bear. So I think that's important. And then again, you look for volunteers as well, right?
Yes, ma'am. We could not exist without volunteers because we're a nonprofit. Nobody gets paid. So out of your social drive, if you will, for equality for all, that's the passion that leads me personally. And that's why I do it. I do it because I want to help other people, service other people, if you will.
Do you have meetings at all throughout the year?
Yes. So our meetings are generally held on the first or second Monday of every month, on a Monday, at our corporate headquarters here in Youngstown, as I like to call it, on Fifth Avenue. Anyone's invited. We're always trying to get members of the public to come in, sit in, and if they like what they see, to feel so moved to maybe join the NAACP, because it has to come from the heart. It has to be a passion, a conviction, if you will, that you will want to serve, and of course, no wage.
Of course, but that's the key again for the majority of the not-for-profits. And we were talking again about the number of years that the NAACP has been in this community and the impact. Can you talk about some of the past issues that you've addressed?
Issues like my wife mentioned presently is education. But in the past, it could have been police harassment, it could have been educational concerns, housing concerns was a big one coming around the 40s and the 50s, if you will, with red zoning and stuff like that. But we've come a long way, but the fight and the struggle continues for everybody, for all citizens, because like I mentioned at the beginning, we're a multiracial or biracial organization. And it was set up that way from the beginning, just to let you know all people are included.
Well, there's no way as individually as one group results can happen. It has to change the thinking and the ideology of the entire community. Don't go away, come back. We're going to learn about the upcoming banquet and how you can help support the mission as they move towards their 100th year. Welcome back as we continue our conversation, and Ms. Napier is now going to share with us the upcoming Freedom Banquet event.
I'm excited to be here today to share some information about the banquet that's upcoming. Our theme this year is Educational Excellence Equals Economic Empowerment. And it speaks volumes to what the NAACP brings to bear. Right now, we're looking, our focus has mainly been on education. And, we may have had some opposition as a result of, laser focusing on education recently, but it's because education is power. If there's no education, then your children will lack. It's hard to, find employment, etc. So, like I said, our focus this year has really been on education. We're going to have it at East High School this year. This food is delicious. The same caterer we used last year, and good service, good food, and they're easy to work with.
What's planned for the day besides a good meal? What else is programmed?
I'm glad that you asked that. We have two excellent speakers this year. We have Mr. Tom Roberts, and Mr. Tom Roberts actually is the president of the state NAACP unit, and he also was in the Senate at one point here in the state of Ohio. So he brings a wealth of knowledge, not just about education, but he can speak to a lot of the things that are ailing our community these days. So he's one of our speakers, and we're really looking forward. We're excited to have him. And most important, we're very excited because, like I said, education has been, our theme. We also are going to have none other than Mrs. Sonia Gordon. And Mrs. Sonia Gordon is the Chief of Secondary Education. She is formerly a graduate from East. She also is an alum of Kent State University. I'm kind of happy to say that. I work at Kent State, so, seeing somebody who's also an alum from Kent State, you won't hold that against me. But we're very happy to have her this year because putting a face to what's going on in the community as far as education. Because unfortunately, for 20 years running, and that's the reason why we have focused so much on education, we have seen straight Fs, and that's not a good thing. As far as the state standardized tests,
etc. Talking about the rating of the schools.
The rating of the school systems, has not been good. And, working in higher education myself, I see it. We'll see students that will come. They might even have a grade point average that says, I can do it. But they're not efficient. They're not efficient. The reading, is not on level. Their math scores are not on level. And then they get to college and they fail. They don't do well.
I think the latest study is showing that on average for African American students, their first year is in remediations. They're
yes.
taking courses that they have in order to meet the requirements that they should have gotten.
In high school.
Okay.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why we are really focused on that, because we're seeing our children slide. They come in often at a disadvantage in the first place, and many times, it depending on the economic, and it's not a color thing. It's more or less across the line based on economics. And, a lot of the inner city schools, and Youngstown is inner city school, we're not seeing them get what they need. And one of the things that the NAACP has put to task to, to the Youngstown City schools is to make sure that they are able to pass those standard tests. And that's what they're working on. And that's the reason, because people say, well, why are you at East, instead of being at one of the country clubs or etc. But we're trying to put the emphasis and the focus, and then also to bring people in that maybe wouldn't necessarily come to the high school if you don't have children there.
I think that's a good point. Let's talk about that a little bit. It's an opportunity for those who have not been inside one of our city schools for whatever the reason, to have an opportunity to see, that here it is, but there are also some positive things going on as well. And for the NAACP, how are you keeping families engaged? Because I think we both, the three of us, are probably sitting here today because of our families and the support system that we had. What's the role of the NAACP in working and strengthening families so that, that adage that it takes a whole village to raise a child is also the message coming through from the NAACP.
Right. I'm glad that you brought that point up. We do have a youth chapter of the NAACP. And we are, trying to engage our youth. We have quite a few young stars, upcoming leaders, because leaders are trained. They're not just born leaders. You might have leadership in your background, but you're trained. And we're working with a group of young people right now and try to get them, to the place where they can take over, because, we got to know that every day that we live, we're getting older.
They're not our future, they're our present.
They're our present. They are our
saying
present.
that every day.
Right.
When you talk about the celebration, which is really what the banquet is, it's an opportunity for the community to come out, and this is open to the broad community.
Correct.
To not only to generate revenue, but to have an opportunity to see what's going on.
To see what's going on
within the NAACP. So what else will be happening that evening? We got a good meal.
We got
two good speakers.
2 good speakers. There's always good music.
Okay.
Maybe no dancing, but good music.
Okay.
And interaction. The nice thing about the event is that it brings about a broad spectrum of people. You'll have people from religious community, you'll have people that are in politics, you'll have educators. It's a nice mix. And I really like that. It's kind of representative of what the NAACP actually stands for. Of the community, yes. I love that.
$45, that's an offering.
Yeah.
And again, going back to your comment, it's a way of financially not only supporting the locals' missions and the programs that you have, but sustaining of the national, which is where the hard work actually
is done.
Go down, right.
As my husband had already spoken to the history, NAACP has had a long history of coming to the defense of those who don't have anybody to stand up for them. I come from a legacy of NAACP. My great uncle, Benjamin Lambert, was one of the founding members of the Detroit chapter in 1912. So, history has always been something, it's been a legacy in my family, because Benjamin was also the was also the son of William Lambert of the Underground Railroad. So, and he, I don't know, I guess it's just in our blood. It's in my blood. It's a history.
But that was why I brought up family, as families, we have to teach our children the richness of our history and the important role that we played in the development of this country, and we continue to do so. And through the NAACP, that is a way of sustaining that. And as a historian, I'm sure you played an important role in keeping that history alive.
Oh, the chapter members testified it.
You got their ear. We're going to take another short break. Don't go away. Welcome back, and I want to thank you both for joining me today and opening again, reminding me as well of the role of the NAACP and it plays in the community. And so you've got the event coming up. We want to remind people to get their tickets on time.
Yes.
No tickets at the door.
None at the door. Please get your tickets. Yearly we do this, and it's not just for form and fashion. It's not just so that we can celebrate, even though it is a celebration. We come together for this as a way of gaining revenue for the entire year, because as we mentioned before, we are a nonprofit. Again, the event's going to be Friday, October the 5th at 6 p.m. at East High School. The address is 475 Bennington Avenue, Youngstown, Ohio. In order to get your tickets, please call 330-782-9777. Or you may visit our website at www.naacp.youngstown.org. Again, our speakers are going to be the former state senator and president of the NAACP currently, Tom Roberts, and also Mrs. Sonia Gordon, East High School, former transformational principal, but now the chief administrator in that particular area of secondary education. We're very excited about this, and I think that if you come on out, you'll have a good time.
I want to make a correction. My graphic showed 7, but you're saying 6.
6.
Oh, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Okay.
The tickets say 6.
Starts promptly at 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to make sure that gets out there, because
Yeah.
what I got was 7.
Right. Yes, and our tickets are printed for 6. So I brought one out for you, so you can see what it looks like.
6 o'clock, not 7. And you need to get your ticket, and the cutoff date for getting the ticket?
At least a week before.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair
because
enough.
we have to turn in our
Your
counts, numbers to the caterer.
Yes, ma'am.
And to continue your mission year-long, volunteers are important to what you do.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And you meet every
Second Monday at the NAACP local headquarters, which is located on 5th Avenue in
Right.
the former Dollar Savings and Trust Bank building. A lot of people remember it for
Right.
being that. It's a Collins Towers building.
And you definitely, if you are in need of service or you have a question, they can call. Someone
Yes.
will get back to them.
Yes, and email too, or even visit our social site there as well.
Right. And I've done that on your website, and there is information out there on your website about who you are and what you do and
Yes.
why you do it and why the continued need for you to exist. And you'll be looking to celebrate 100 years. You got
100
something
years
planned?
next year.
For next year.
Oh, it's going to be a big gala. You only got one time to do it 100.
That's correct.
So we're focused on that ahead of time, and we're going to move that forward, and we're going to have a good time.
So bring out your gowns for next year.
Oh, you got something planned. Well, 100 years is worth celebrating.
Yes, ma'am. It's a monumental
Because
achievement.
you would have thought that given the mission 100 years ago, that who would think that an NAACP would still be needed today.
No, it's still
But
relevant.
as you said, it's very relevant to what's taking place in our community today.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, the number to call is 330-782-9777.
Correct.
I had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Brown. If you're looking for something specific to do to make a difference in your community, consider the NAACP. And thank you both for joining me, and I thank you, and we will see you next.